So do we have any questions? And also, if you are tuning into this page, comment down below and say hi. Love to see who is visiting. Let's see. I think we got one of our regulars on here. Great to see you, Bella. Bella joined us. And the other update I'm going to give in a little bit is going to be about Arlington. So Arlington is, this is a greater topic that's also come up because, we lost Arlington, and that was atrocious what happened. And I also want to talk a little bit about Defend Arlington. So for those that don't know, Defend Arlington from day one has been the major organization that has been on top of what is going on with Arlington, uniting people together for the common fight of saving the monument, getting together a very thorough white papers, to say, hey, let's save this monument, let's protect it. And there's a lot of things that, played a role in that. So the good news is potentially Arlington can go back up. And that was something that a lot of people didn't necessarily understand. They might have thought, okay, Arlington is going to stay down and this and that. Well, there's an interesting thing in Jewish law, and I'm just kind of going to paraphrase right here. Basically, in that culture of the Jewish religion, you do not touch someone's grave. That memorial was not just a monument. That was Moses Ezekiel's grave. That was his tombstone. He is a Jewish American. So by a loophole in that, the monument could very well go back up. And there's about two possibilities that are strong. First one, and without getting into the weeds of politics, is let's say, the election, there's two candidates running without getting into the weeds of it again. If one of them gets in who tends to be, pro-America, pro-monument, who is running against the current power, that would be how the monument would then go back up. That's one option. But another option is the claim that, this violated a serious Jewish law right here. They took down the memorial. And I'll pull that article up for y'all to see. But for now, I'm going to take a copy of this link and I'm going to post it down below. So for anybody watching, y'all could get the link to the article on Virginia renaming the schools. Now, it just goes to show you that no matter how bleak something looks, because let's look at Virginia back in 2020. Heck, even the early 2000s, like 2010, Virginia was a shell of its former self, y'all. It was getting attacked. Northern Virginia was falling. We were losing heritage. Virginia, we would never imagine that Monument Avenue, of all places, will get torn down and destroyed. But it did. We lost school names. We lost a lot of stuff. And just by a small change in power at the local level, things can go back in our way. And this is always the important part to mention, that as private citizens, we have a lot of power. Now, the issue becomes if anybody is part of any of the numerous, hundreds of different groups that are out there for heritage, you can't mix business and pleasure, or business and politics, as they say, because you can lose your 501c3 status. So as private citizens, it is our civic duty to be attending these meetings, going to the meetings and, in a nice way saying, look, thank you for restoring the names. Or if you disagree with them with something that happened with them taking away a name, we're going to vote you out. We're going to get in a new council that's going to vote to put our stuff back. That's how you're going to get the positive change, with all of this. So I'm going to pull up Arlington's link for y'all so y'all can get a good look about that. I can find it right there. They also talked a little bit about, and this is another update for, the whole thing with Arlington. Hey there, Dixie Lee. How are you? Good to see you. So with Arlington, the commission that was on it, they were asked, could the monument potentially go back up? And they said, yes, it could go back up. So that was some good news that occurred. The other thing with the Arlington meeting is it really showed that what they're trying to do is shameful. Now, there is a time capsule that's underneath that memorial. The problem has been they have no interest in finding it. And it would be kind of interesting because based on what's in that time capsule, they would find a lot of stuff about reconciliation. And I think that they're being smart. They being the government is being smart by not getting that time capsule, because that's going to show that, oh, wow, we done goofed up. And I also saw something else about the military being at an all-time low. This is something that we have got to continue to push as private citizens, that, you know what, we have got to, you know, stand strong and say, you know, we're not going to let this stay down. We're not going to, you know, tolerate this. And we're going to tell our families, as a result, we're not going to recommend they join the military. And I can't stress that enough, that we have got to encourage our young ones, don't get involved in the armed forces. It ain't worth it, especially when you're being put in an environment that's anti-Southern, anti-heritage, decently pro-woke. That's all I got to say on that issue. I know, Dixie Lee, I've been looking for you too, and I apologize. It's been a heck of a, you know, about a month and a half to 2 months we haven't been on here. A lot of stuff going on, you know, and all that, a lot of changes between, you know, personal life and, you know, professional life, and trying to get my PhD. Just a lot of stuff happened where I had to put more attention. But the good news is, y'all, I'm going to be here to stay. I don't have to go to any more of the residencies. I finished my clinical residencies with flying colors, all A's. One of my courses, I scored 100%. And I do apologize that, you know, it kind of seemed like I was putting everything on the back burner. That was not my intent at all. It's just how it, you know, happened. Sometimes you got to kind of prioritize. And I still was involved in heritage stuff, still supporting where I could, supporting, you know, local organizations and whatnot. Thank you, Dixie Lee. I appreciate it. I also figured I'd mention something else because, you know, my residencies were held in Minneapolis. And I can honestly say, and I you know, every time I go to Minneapolis, I had to go there 4 times. I would keep a journal and I would say, you know what, every time I left there, you know, it's bad when you're excited to go back up north and you're leaving Minneapolis. Usually it's, you know, you go down somewhere south or out west and you're like, oh, phooey, I got to go back up to New York or New Jersey or, you know, somewhere up there. It's pretty bad when you're excited to go back to see New York and New Jersey. Never thought I would say that. Never thought I'd even live to see the day that I'd be excited for that. But Minneapolis made it happen. The crime was through the roof when we were there. People were rude. Minneapolis is essentially New Somalia. And I'll explain more about that comment. So here's a fun little fact about Minnesota. So as you know, Minnesota was Yankee during the war between the states. And the state flag was had a lot of Union symbolism. It was based off that one Yankees flag. So the interesting thing is the flag they had a brand new flag that was unveiled on May 11th, 2024. So we had just missed this by a few days. And I remember I got a few photographs with the old state flag when it was on the flagpoles. Now it's all gone. This is what Minnesota decided to do, y'all. And apparently it was because the Yankee flag was offensive to Native Americans. And it's kind of interesting how Minneapolis kind of dances around the point that in Minnesota, you had the Buffalo Soldiers, which was a Yankee regiment. It was segregated. And you had a Yankee flag that, you know, fought for the Union. And basically that flag became the state flag. And in that flag, it had an Indian that was in there. Well, apparently the depiction of the Indian was deemed offensive. And because it's offensive, oh, we got to change it. We got to kind of destroy it. So this is the interesting thing right here. If anybody knows the symbolism of an 8-pointed star, it tends to have a lot of Islamic symbolism to it. And right here is the new Minnesota state flag, y'all. Look at what they changed. It almost looks like it's a Bonnie blue or something. And that was my first thought when I saw this. I said, oh my goodness, interesting. And I remember, you know, kind of listening to the news stations there and all that and going, all right, what's going on with the state flag? But yeah, really, really interesting. And for some reason, it won't let me do this to the YouTube, so I apologize, y'all. But really goes to show that, this state flag right here, that's not doing it justice at all. It looks really plain, boring. It doesn't have that pizzazz that it once did. It really is falling short of what the original flag looked like. And I'm not one to normally defend, you know, Yankee heritage and all that, but, you know, it's kind of an I told you so moment. And then after this happened, people in Minnesota were saying, yeah, we support the monuments staying up. They should never have come down. Well, it's too little too late, y'all. Where were y'all, years ago when we were experiencing that? And that's something that it's really, an eye opener to. So that's what the new flag is going to be. I know a lot of people were not happy. It says right here, the state flag represents many of the state's best-known traits, including its many lakes and rivers and the North Star. I look at this and I do not see anything in reference to the lakes. The color blue, it looks like it's springtime colors. You got this kind of triangle-like shape in there. Don't know what they were trying to do with right there. Almost has let's see, that's like a pentagon-like shape in a way. That eight-pointed star. Very boring. It's a downgrade. And you look at other states that have lost their flags. Utah removed the flag that had the federal flag in it. So the federal flag was removed and it's been replaced by a beehive. So that was something that I thought was interesting too. And it says right here that this apparently creates the illusion of the letter M, which I am not seeing at all. So from the angle, the 8-pointed star creates that illusion of 4-letter M's, which I guess is like M, but I don't see that one bit. The dark blue background is a stylized shape of the outline of the state of Minnesota, representing the land of Minnesota. I went to Minnesota and nowhere did I see land that was that dark color blue. The closest thing I saw in Minnesota that color dark blue was the trash bags that were all over the streets of Minneapolis because it was pretty dingy, y'all. Let's see what else. The rest of the flag is a solid bright blue that represents water. And apparently Minnesota is a land of 10,000 lakes. Did not know that, but interesting. They're probably defining lakes as a very, very small watershed. So that is quite interesting right there. Huh. Welcome, Terry. And I hope I say this right. Terry Klama. I think I said that right. Lincoln was also responsible for the largest mass execution of the Lakota tribe in Minnesota with 32 hangings. That is correct. He also promised Governor significant dollars to rid the state of the indigenous tribes. That is correct. So with Minnesota, along with some of those states that you'll see, they once had a lot of native tribes. Well, the tribes have been decimated. And, we also see this, during the war between the states, but we also see it after the war, especially. After the war, you had this idea of manifest destiny, and that was essentially the idea that was flawed, and it was that we got to take all the native tribes and we have to, quote unquote, educate them to be Americans and, take them away from their tribe, kind of enforce our values. They would have these elaborate ceremonies too. They would send the youth to schools. So right there, they're controlling the youth, because if they can control the youth through education and the schooling, you would then have an impact on the heritage. That's kind of what we're seeing now when it comes to Southern heritage. They indoctrinate, ashamed of their roots or just not for the heritage at all. And then you end up having them being self-loathing. That was done years before by a lot of people that served in the federal army. Grant was also a very huge proponent of that, as was Sherman. You had a few other people as well that were former Union officers that played a big role in that, and to quote unquote, Native American re-education, or what they would say the Indian reform schools. And I know that Pennsylvania, Carlisle is definitely the biggest one. Yeah, Mississippi state flag. That's another big issue right there, is that you go to Mississippi and it depends on where, you are. I would say the vast majority of Mississippi, they still fly the true flag in Mississippi. That includes the battle flag emblem. I know on areas where it's a little bit more liberal, so like Jackson, Mississippi, Natchez, they tend to just not fly anything at all, and they will fly what I call the socialist flag in Mississippi. Dixie, I didn't even know that. Apparently they're trying to remove the Alabama flag. This is news to me. Probably because it's a big red X. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned it here before, but there was something funny that kind of happened with New Jersey. So back in around 2016, New Jersey had a state flag contest, like redesign the state flag of Jersey. I'm going to be honest, y'all, our flag is pretty blah in New Jersey. It ain't that interesting at all. So I wouldn't have minded. The design they picked, I really, really liked because it looked like somebody took a small section out of the Trans-Mississippi flag. They also had quite an interesting thing of, during the contest, and I think one of the designs they picked, which I'll pull up for y'all, looked like it was the South Carolina secession flag, and that was, one of the close runner-ups, I think. So Dixie says, yes, they said it resembles the battle. That's crazy. That's St. Andrew's Cross, which is the funniest thing ever. Huh. I know they also were, they wanted to remove the battle flag from the state seal of Alabama, but thankfully got, knocked down. Because I know the state seal of Alabama includes all the different countries that owned Alabama. So the Spanish, the French, it included, I think, the British, and then it included the Confederate States of America, and then it included, the federal shield in there. So Alabama has always been very proud of their history because if you think about it, that's all the state's history. So for them to just be very selective and say, we're going to take out the Confederacy, well, that would mean they'd have to take out France, Spain, and England. Yeah, that was just craziness. But I will say that Alabama, to my knowledge, under Mama Ivy, who's the current governor, you are not going to see anything go downhill because she's a pretty big fighter for defending heritage. Corey, how are you?
Oh, exhausted. What about you, man?
I'm feeling exhausted too. It's the hot weather.
Oh yeah. Try a warehouse with no heat and air, dude.
I think I would trade places today because today I was swarmed by a thing of bees at work. We're having a huge problem because apparently, and this is just my theory, I think a local beekeeper lost their bees. And what happens with that is they should register their hive. A lot of beekeepers don't. We don't know what kind of honeybees they are. It could be Russian bees, which I actually like because they make more honey. They're also more resilient. The downside of that breed is they tend to swarm more and they tend to act kind of like killer bees. They're more aggressive than normal. And we caught them that they are not only in the building, they're in the attic. They're not only in the walling, but they've now tunneled out through the side of the building. So if they keep it up, we might have the attic collapse in and we might have part of the wall collapse in.
Oh, man, that's bad.
I never knew that honeybees can cause damage, but apparently they can cause massive structural damage.
Yeah, I see before me the new flag of Minnesota.
Don't you just love it?
Yeah. Don't you just love it? I like the old flag better, though.
I like the old one too, and like I told people, I said, you're not going to find me getting behind any Yankee heritage because they often, their stuff is only just being touched, but it's an I told you so moment when they were given the chance to stand up for American history and they chose not to. I'm sitting back and going, well, this is a shame. I miss the old flag, but I told you so. Where were y'all in 2020?
Oh, I know. I actually just sent, I found my little cousins are descendants of an Ohio governor.
Oh no.
From the Revolutionary period.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep. And turns out this guy's father was a Revolutionary War hero that attempted the invasion of Canada towards Quebec.
No kidding.
Yeah. Had a very unique name, Return Jonathan Meigs. I would never have guessed someone's first name would be Return.
Yeah, that's an interesting first name.
He probably went by Jonathan or John.
Return. That's, it's like when there's been people I've heard names where I think the first person's name was her whole name was Ima was her first name, like IMA, and then her last name was PIGG Pig. I'm a pig, like. I knew one guy, his first name was Dick, his last name was Hooker, and his full name was Dick Hooker.
Oh, man, did their parents not love him or what?
And the parents knew what the name was going to be like too. That was the funny thing. So in his like 30s, he's going by, my name is Richard, or he would just go by Mr. Hooker. But you know, you tell like people, yeah, my name is Mr. Hooker, they're going to be laughing.
Mm-hmm. Talk about boy named Sue.
Oh, that's not Dixie Lisa. That's another name. Oh man, that's a funny one. Yeah, hey, look at that. Richard Inman. Oh man, that's horrible.
Oh, I saw a guy. They wouldn't put his last name on his license plate, but he put it on the tailgate of his truck. It was Assman.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
There was a gym teacher I had years and years ago. Oh man. And she would always go by Mrs. P because nobody could say her name. It was Pines, but it was spelled like a certain, part without saying the part. And yeah, so she was like, no, it's Pines. It's Pines. And it was like silent letters. And she's like thinking at some point, I'm just going to go down and change my name. There was another person whose name was, if you didn't pronounce it right, it would sound different. The correct name was Kaman Hung. It was Chinese. And the secretary who was paging him on the intercom, she pages him, Gay Man Hung. Gay Man Hung. Yeah. I think the laughter was probably enough to make the neighbors file the noise complaint at work, because that was my old job. And it was the one thing where I was like, they did not just say that over the intercom.
Oh man. That poor fella.
Oh man. Yeah, stuff like that. I'm always like, it's I always love those little laughs like that. And in that case, I can see somebody maybe changing their name because of like the shame or something, or like they're just tired of it. But it definitely will set you apart. That's for sure.
It would. But I was listening to the Daily Wire and Matt Walsh's show lately, and in one episode he was just talking about the Monuments Amendment, that how it should have been, you mess with a monument to get 10 years, kind of like what Trump wanted, and I'm like, dude, where were you 2020?
This is the problem. And it took them so long to realize. And, out of the whole thing that's been happening in the world with like, issues abroad, and they've had issues abroad with vandalisms and destroying paintings and destroying art and attacking museums. It took this much to finally wake, because, compared to other parts of the world, while our country may be developed, we still got a long way to go.
Well, I know there was this elderly couple trying to break through the glass to get to the Magna Carta in the UK.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to bring that video up, because that one was that was a little bizarre, because usually it's like people with green and purple hair that are like, 19 years old that are doing this, not somebody who's kind of like 65 and up. It's absolutely ridiculous. Oh no. Dixie said, I didn't want to tell you, I don't want to change the subject, but there's something you need to know about regarding Nathan Bedford Forrest. Of course, they moved his and his wife's graves to Tennessee, but they accidentally left his 6-year-old daughter. No one knows she's there alone. If people find out, hopefully, oh man. Well, you know what? Chances are they probably, and if that's true that she is indeed buried there, I have not heard that. I'm going to look into that and research that. But chances are,
is she buried at the park?
Or yeah, because I'm going to look that up.
Or is she buried at the cemetery where they were all originally buried at?
Because that original cemetery would have been Elmwood, and Elmwood Cemetery was the original plot where the Forrests were. And I remember seeing that back when the monument was still at the place. Memphis. She was buried at the park. Then I'm gonna just check. I'm gonna double check that, because that's interesting. Thank you for mentioning that, Dixie, because this is unique for
Yeah.
sure.
I didn't know about that actually. Fanny Forrest.
Yep. That would have been Francis, aka Fanny Forrest. That would have been, sorry, Francis was his sibling, but he actually named the daughter after
His twin sister. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Frances and Fanny Forrest. No, she's at Elmwood. She's at Elmwood.
Good news is she is at Elmwood, but yeah, that's got to be that, and that was crazy. You would think when they were doing the what do you call it?
She's not by herself. William Montgomery Forrest is there too.
Yeah, she's got one of them kind of cradle-shaped graves you can put flowers on.
Yeah.
So I'll get a picture up for y'all. That is
Yeah.
her grave today.
But yeah, she's not by herself. Her brother is buried next to her.
I mean, stranger
Yeah.
things have happened. There is always a chance that maybe she was exhumed and it was never kind of made clear that she was indeed buried next to them or somehow in that vicinity. That has happened in other situations. So I guess that's where the original plot was. If she is not buried under there, that's what it would have looked like. Wow. Because, yeah, I remember when they did the Forest Graves, apparently Mariana's tomb was kind of like that, but then they buried over it to make the thing. That would be sad if that's the case, for sure. Yikes.
Yeah.
Definitely really interesting for sure. I know I spoke to, because we were at a Flaggers event and we had a really good turnout. So we had about 5 of us that were there, which that was pretty good. Plus other people that wanted to learn more about the Flaggers. And we spoke to the one media company that was there. And again, similar thing. You know, I tend to be the person that does a lot of the speaking because I know how to handle like media. And, you know, with media, you got to be respectful. You got to be mellow, relax, smile. They love it when you are riled up. I was not riled up. I didn't do anything like some people give them the bird. I'm not like that. More than happy to have a conversation. And my favorite is every time they see one of the battle flags, they say, oh, that's the slavery flag. This was my response to them. I said, well, no, this is not the slavery flag. I'll tell you what, though, there's tons of slavery flags here at this rally. And they're like, where? And I point at the federal flag flying. And I said, see that flag right there? That flew over slavery the longest, including slavery ending in New Jersey, the last Union slave state, slavery ending out in California, which was the Indian Slave Act that took a long time to repeal. Wasn't really until the turn of the century that they repealed it, and they didn't get rid of the rest of it until the 1960s or 70s. It was up there.
Yeah. And another thing, too, they seem to conveniently forget that Jefferson Davis voted into law in the Confederate States of America no importation of slaves.
That's right.
And that and I've had this on Jack's live that he also passed into law that slaves get patents for their inventions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's those facts like that they are usually blind to. And then when I mentioned, I said, where does this end? I said, if they're taking down, Southern monuments, it's not just Southern monuments. It's anybody who they deem to be quote unquote a white supremacist, which is their trigger word. All they got to do is say that word and they get whatever. I mean, heck, they were taking down Martin Luther King stuff. They were taking down World War I monuments. They took down several Union monuments because of the atrocities against Indians. So this is something that we're going to see, I think, is that you're going to see more of this probably happen. I still think you're going to see lots of monuments come down, not necessarily Southern ones, but all across the board. In my state, for sure, if you are anybody who is Christian, if you are white, that's 2 strikes against you.
Yeah. I can see that because, I mean, look what they're doing. Look what they did to Lafayette statue and George Washington.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah, when they painted him, put a keffiyeh on him.
Yep.
And they did the same thing with Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. I mean, we've constantly said.
I said, know if that was any of our monuments, they would say that they're going to be removing them because it's a safety issue.
Yeah,
Golly,
safety
that's not messed
issue.
up.
Yeah, yeah. They just removed a monument here in Arkansas out of the Capitol Rotunda.
Was that the state capitol,
Yes,
or was that DC?
Arkansas, Little Rock.
Shameful.
Yeah,
Absolutely shameful.
because of his pro-Confederate ties, and he was a lawyer.
Shameful.
Yeah.
I would never expect that to happen in Arkansas. Wait, was this voted on? Where were the state Republicans on that?
It was quietly removed, and they cited that they moved it out because nobody knew who he was.
Exactly, Dixie, for no reason. That even gets me crazier because this is something that they have got to get people to get on them and say, wait a minute, you guys are in office and you're allowing your state's history to kind of be trampled. Like, what's up with this? The problem is that people have gotten too complacent with their political parties. Well, vote straight Republican, do this. And I hate to say it, but the Republicans really don't care about us losing our heritage. We've seen that time and time again. And it's always like, vote for them still. It's the only option. No, there's an option. It's either not voting or writing someone in. I always vote. It's your civic duty. So what I do is I'll write someone in. I'll say, I'm going to get creative. And all that. Absolutely. So true, Dixie. It's all that. That's a big issue of it too.
It is. They're West Coast Straussians and Japites. That's what they are. I mean, they treat our history as D versus R. And I mean,
have you seen Stace Nelson by any chance?
Seen what?
I think his name is Stacey Nelson. He's a guy that was running in South Dakota, and he was many times cited for like his conduct issues and got in trouble several times. But he's a really corrupt Republican, and he's very pro-Trump but very corrupt. And then he was attacking Confederate heritage. So anytime you post something pro-Confederate on X, he goes on there and he just is like very irreverent. He posts a very disgusting, vulgar meme. And these are the Republicans that people are saying vote for. That he's like, I'm more conservative than you, but then he's anti-Confederate.
I know. And did you ever watch Brian McClanahan and Brooks Simpson go at it on X?
I love that when you see that happening.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't got into it with Victor Davis Hanson yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. I love when McClanahan, when you done messed with him, he comes out like citing books, citing a whole bunch of cool stuff. I'm like, you go, Byron.
Yeah, he what on earth? My cats are getting into something. I hear something.
Oh no, they're gonna be taking down the TV.
No,
Any of y'all have cats here? Always wanted to have a pet cat, but always knew that it would not be a good idea with my little library at home and having a dog that would probably be getting into fights with them.
Nope, they knocked over my trash can, is what they did.
Oh my gosh.
Not my big one, but my bathroom one.
See, that's the worst when dogs do that.
But yeah, I love how he just goes full bore on everybody on X. But I really loved how he pretty much gave props to Carl Jones on X.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. But yeah, this weekend on my way up to my cousin's graduation, I stopped by to put flags on our secession president's grave up in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And oh man, Fayetteville is changing, and it's looking less Arkansas.
Man,
you see a lot of people from California coming in.
That scares me. That really, because I know that there was also an exodus kind of out west in those areas from Arkansas and around there where they moved to California, and that happened a year ago. I still do not trust somebody coming from California. It's bad
I
enough
don't.
when New Jersey is like, don't California, New Jersey. We're like, don't New York, New Jersey. People from the Massachusetts. Oh my gosh, nightmarish to work with.
No. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, and they renamed the Boulevard Street Nelson Hackett Boulevard and renaming it away from Archibald Yale Boulevard, named after our governor, who single-handedly built, who practically built Fayetteville. That's right, Dixie. They don't vote differently. They leave their cesspits that they call California, New York
Yes.
City, or sorry, Vinny, New Jersey.
No offense taken one bit, because that's a factual thing. And you're going to, like, I tell people all the time, because in New Jersey, and this is an issue all across the board as a general, some people have really big egos. And when they have big egos, they just like to kind of argue and argue and argue. You will not find that with me. And I will say that with New Jersey and people knocking it, I knock New Jersey all the time, to the point where people say, why do you still live here? My response, are you going to be paying my bills? Are you going to be paying my moving bills? Are you going to pay for me to finish my degree? If the answer is no, then I'm stuck here. But New Jersey, some of the people here are some of the most irritating people, that they move somewhere and they're like, they want to change everything. They want to, tear down more forests, build one of their modern homes. Oh, wait, we can't have any association to that. That'll make us look bad. And they vote like they're freaking Nikki Haley.
Yes. And I mean, I'm seeing a lot less farms in Northwest Arkansas. And
oh no.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, Northwest Arkansas is doing it to themselves, because what is Fayetteville, Bentonville, and Springdale? They're the home offices of J.B. Hunt, Walmart, Tyson, and yeah. But yeah, they definitely don't leave their bad policies in California. They import it with them.
That's right. They bring it down with them, and it's the same grievances. And that's what I always tell people. I did not come down with them same grievances that destroyed y'all states. And I've had people saying, we're all Americans. I said, no, there is a difference, because every state has its own culture. And that's the problem, is that people have gone so far away from the value of being a statesman. I mean, like, it used to be every state, every region had culture that was specific to it. And when they just use that blanket term, we're all Americans, that is a simple way of saying, well, guess what? There's no culture. It's that nonsense. It's like, let's just remove the culture, remove the state stuff, remove what makes you unique. Like in New Jersey, we used to have state culture, not anymore, but where we do still have it, and this is kind of funny, is that New Jersey, people divide horizontally when it should be diagonal. You got North Jersey up top, which is very hoity-toity, acts like it's New York, and you have South Jersey, and that invisible line called Central Jersey. People sound different in North Jersey, South Jersey, and Central Jersey. They have a different vocabulary, different state slang. That's all where we vary. But New Jersey is not like the South, where the South has state songs. They have that state pride. That's been the sad part of it all.
Yeah, that's the only thing that really, the only state pride you'll probably find in Arkansas is calling the Hogs, and U of A, Fayetteville, the Razorbacks. And yeah, and that's another thing too. You got University of Arkansas is huge, so you got a bunch of these liberal college students living there too.
Oof. Yeah, that drives me nuts.
Yeah, John McLeese, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, state pride is now connected to your college sport and not to your local culture. And
I would love to move to Alabama. That's actually one of my goals, because Alabama is one of the easiest states to move to if you have an established clinical psychology license. And that's the problem, is that some of these states I really wanted to go to, I can't move to because of the laws with reciprocity. Alabama, I'd have the best shot at and having a really good shot at practicing and all that.
Yeah, and you probably will not see me move to Alabama. I love my home state too much.
Oh, Arkansas is beautiful.
Yeah.
And you got diamonds there too.
Yeah, we have diamonds, we have coal, and well, we have coal, we have bauxite, we have rice, we have chickens. And what drives me up a wall is that all these coal mines that we're not even using.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've been recovering from kind of respiratory infection. If I cough on here, y'all, 2 weeks ago, if I tried to go live, you could not understand a word I was saying because I sounded like a smoker and I lost my voice. Some kind of pneumonia.
That sucks, man. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I called it Yankee pneumonia. I got it every time I went to Minnesota. I got something. I got COVID the third time when I went there in October, which I was told that just because you got COVID, you still got to attend class. They would not let me miss class. So I had to be there with a fever and all, and I felt awful. And then the same time, I had no fever, but I felt awful and I had no voice. And that was the worst to kind of get through the last few days.
Oh, man, that bites.
That's true, John. That is absolutely true with college sports. Well, you know what's funny? Speaking of sports, anybody who's ever been to Rutgers, I think they're the Spartans or something. Or they might be the Romans. They got some kind of like, no, sorry, it's the Scarlet Knights. The Scarlet Knights from Rutgers, and they have the poorest sportsmanship ever. Every time you go to a Rutgers football game, they boo the other team. They throw things. People are actually taking their sodas and like chucking them into the audience, over the ring, trying to like throw them to the other team, booing at them, yelling obscenities. And it's really bad how they get treated. And then I won't say the term, but basically, there's another name for Rutgers that starts with an S. Use your imagination with that. The way that some of the gentlemen were behaving, they were taking off their tank tops, getting shirtless. The women were wearing a bandana tied with a little knot, and that they were really out of control with throwing food. I went there with my friend, and I remember I ended up wearing part of a hot dog. I got Sprite all over my shirt like she did, and it was just a disaster, an absolute disaster. And I'm like, great. I'm thinking like after the fact, I'm like, is that New Jersey pride? That New Jersey is pretty much just a bunch of cranky people.
Yeah.
That would be great, John. We should still be on 15 minutes. So yeah, pop on, John.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to give you all another link for also I want to thank everybody too, because I don't know how many viewers we had that donated to the Wreaths Across Florida Fund, but Save Southern Heritage Florida, every Confederate Memorial Day does the wreaths about all over Florida where the monuments are and where the monuments were lost. And we got every single thing a memorial. People donated big time. It was so wonderful to see that. Truly appreciate all y'all that did that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, yeah.
It was wonderful to see that.
Yeah, I went over to the grave of our. I'm gonna show you a picture. I'll send you a picture. I went and flagged our Arkansas Secession's president. Oh, he was president of our convention during the war. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he and his sons are buried in a cemetery right next to the Confederate cemetery of Fayetteville.
Oh,
and yeah, it's during the 2020 Summer of Rage or Summer of Love, as I try to call it. Uh, and I'm surprised that no one's messed with those cemeteries.
That's the one thing I worry
Yeah.
about is because, like, at least for now, Arkansas is southern enough, it seems, where the majority of cases you will not find, you know, what do you call it?
Vandalism.
Vandalism, like you have in other places. Where, knock on wood, let's hope it stays that way. Oh,
Yeah.
Ms. Dixie, you actually took the words out of my mouth. I was going to cover that in a little bit, but I'll share the article. I am glad that was a win. So Ms. Dixie is talking about Virginia.
Yeah, I'm glad that he vetoed both bills, but I just wish he just told them to leave everything alone before.
Me too. He would have taken it. And look, this is a win. Let's take the win and let's be cautiously optimistic is the word. Because I tell people, you always got to be careful about being like, oh my gosh, let's party. Because when you kind of get in that mindset, they kind of blindside you with something else.
Yes.
Because very well, maybe next year they'll try to pull something different. And to my knowledge, Youngkin will be out of office not this year, but the next year's election cycle. So 2025 around November.
Yes, and midterm elections, yes, man. And that god awful LeVar Stoney is running on the Democrat ticket as governor.
And what drives me crazy with him is he is pretty much rubbing it in people's faces. LeVar Stoney, we destroyed Richmond. We destroyed our history. We destroyed our city. That's what he is saying. And the fact that people would still say, you know what, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote for him. There's even Democrats that don't like him. I know people that are Democrats that, they don't like Trump, okay, but they like Confederate heritage. That's fine. I understand you're going to have different viewpoints, but how could somebody in good faith say, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to support somebody that destroyed my heritage? That'll never know. That's something that I'm always like,
I'll never understand that either. I mean, he openly says, and I called him out on Twitter before, that he says, we are reimagining Richmond. We are no longer, that I changed Richmond. We are no longer the capital of the Confederacy. And I'm like, dude, you just ruined your tourism. And if anything, I openly called him out as a criminal and a looter and a grave robber, essentially.
No, he is.
And then there's the Shenandoah Valley schools that are going back to Stonewall Jackson and Turner Ashby and Lee School.
Yes, they are.
Oh, yes. That is a victory in itself. And hopefully it stays that way, because they said they hastily changed it in the wake of the George Floyd protests. And hopefully it stays the way it is, and don't get any funny ideas about changing the name again.
I'm hoping. See, that's the one thing, and it's only going to be, as my own opinion, it will only be as good as the board is good. If you get like more people on the board that are awful, that's when you're going to see the issues arise. Because we've actually had that huge problem here where we've lost school names. I mean, we've lost Woodrow Wilson School became Barack Obama School to show progress, which I thought was so ironic. We've had Revolutionary War heroes drop their names. They have signers of the Declarations of Independence. Anything revolution or the Betsy Ross, they are coming at just as hard now, and people are not really realizing that. Up here, you'll be called a radicalist if you have a Betsy Ross flag.
Oh, I saw somebody on TikTok belly aching about seeing a Confederate flag in Jersey on somebody's flagpole.
They did. Oh, they went viral. It was a video. It was on TikTok. It was on X. It went. And I'm like, this is New Jersey. We have tons of battle flags. We have battle flags everywhere in New Jersey. You go down at the shore, you pass that one, it'll be Confederate battle flag, Confederate battle flag. I've seen quite a few First Nationals. I even saw a Second National. I saw a Polk's Corps flag, and I saw a Hardy Corps flag.
I'm surprised you didn't see a Van Dorn flag.
Probably would be there somewhere. I would not put it past anybody in Jersey.
It's a
That's
red
right.
flag with they're as cliche as it is, they're trying to make Confederates a Nazi in the minds of young people, which is ridiculous. I mean, who did Hitler admire or reference in Mein Kampf? From what I read, and it certainly wasn't Jefferson Davis.
That's right.
And I'm fairly certain Nazi Germany would not appreciate Judah Philip Benjamin in high office.
That's right. And the whole
Or
idea is so different. The Confederate States, it was more diverse, and it also was about statesmanship. Nazism is never about Nazism is one giant national thing. It's not about the individual states having power, and that's what they always forget.
Yeah, and the Confederate States of America, and I've said this before, the Confederate States of America and Nazi Germany, that each two of its values are not compatible at all.
That's right.
Every time I see a Nazi symbol on a Confederate flag, I'm like, how ignorant are you really?
That's correct. It shows not only to show their ignorance, but it also shows that
they probably have no biological ties to the South at all.
Yeah, and they don't know history, because that's the biggest thing too. Absolutely, Dixie. That's what it comes down to too. And the other thing too is look at the original, and I'm not going to do it because you'll get censored for it, but look at the original salute to what was the original gesture to the salute to the federal flag? Look, it was one outstretched arm high up, just like the salute to that other flag. And that changed shortly after World War II.
Yeah, it was called the Bellamy salute back then.
Mm-hmm. That's the rabbit hole that people, when they go down, it's like you're never almost the same after that. When you look at wait, who did the pledge? What was the purpose of the pledge? And that's the one thing that people have got to wake up to, that, when they chime in socialism, or when they say one nation under God, the under God was not even added until later on. It should
50s.
be 50 independent self-governing states. It's not 50 individual self-governing states. That one idea of one nationalism is not a good idea, and that's if one state wants to do something, like California wants to do something, well, guess what? That's California. I feel bad, but you know what? They decided to do that as a state. When are we going to get back to the statesman approach? That when I talk about that at some of the GOP meetings in Jersey, it is like I am just speaking a foreign language.
Yeah, and it's starting to look like it's going that way anyway now. I mean, it seems like Jeffersonianism and federalism is finally, it's been buried in the ground as a seed, and it's finally taken root and blooming up. And I mean, look what's going on in Texas. I mean, they're taking a lot of flack on all broadsides, and telling the Biden administration and the federal government to take a hike. If you're abdicating your duties and we're taking the punishment here, then we'll shoulder the burden ourselves, and we'll take care of it. And
that's right.
And there was talk about one of the states, either North or South Dakota and Ohio and Arkansas. They wanted to lead a convention of states, and I have yet to see that come to fruition. But I think they threw that on the back burner because it's election year.
It's one of those things that you're not going to, the convention of states, you're not going to see much of it, to my knowledge. However, you might see it kind of come up around times where things are tougher, and that's when the people have got to get smarter pushing it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Miss Dixie Lee. It's Obama is in the background. He's a puppet master. I mean, if you look at, hey Cameron,
I'm finally here. Sorry.
I was going to call you to the principal's office.
Oh yeah, that again.
but yeah,
Absolutely. I agree that it's definitely him pulling the strings
Yes.
as well as Nancy Pelosi.
I mean, look if you look at who's Joe Biden surrounds himself is there are either former or Obama appointees that stayed. And I wouldn't be surprised he's being the puppet master because, I mean, I'm fairly certain Obama said that he wouldn't put it past him that Joe Biden would screw things up.
We also mentioned third term several times in the speeches before.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. That's what's happening right now.
That's right. I remember that too, right? When he had caused. Here's something else I forgot to mention to y'all, because y'all know that I have books I worked with recently, Pearson, one of the worst. So they had a book that, after about 10 years, they would add on 10 years of history. Well, the rule should have been that by 2020 or 2021, usually around that point, they would have said, okay, 10 more years comes out. Well, they chose to not really do that. They were very selective. What they did is they covered it was Bush. Reagan, Bush, Obama, cramped into one section. So it was the 1980s, the 1990s, and 2000s. They stopped around 2016 with Obama. They did not address Trump. They did not address Trump getting into office. They did not address, COVID. They didn't address anything that we see today. That's what's being taught now, is that they are pretty much taking any mention of Trump out. They're taking, they're putting Obama in a very positive light. They refuse to criticize Obama like they criticized Bush, Reagan, and even Clinton. It's almost like he could do no wrong. And that's what it's been.
Yeah. I mean, they treat him like a golden goose. Hey, what's up, John?
What's happening, fellas?
Right,
Oh, not a lot.
They put these people, and this is what's crazy. Like, you have Obama, right? The commander in chief. They put these figures to almost like idolatry, and it's ridiculous that because they might be quote unquote a protected status, if they deem them to be like they're a minority, they're protected, that any criticism of their policy is automatically labeled as racist. They will not allow that in the discussion. The textbook writes it out, any information on that. When they talked about Malcolm X and being part of Nation of Islam, when they talked about MLK, nowhere in there did they bring up the shortcomings of these figures. However, everybody else who was Christian, Caucasian, or male was prime target for criticism. That was like overkill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
Ms. Dixie, I don't think you saw my tattoo either, but I got this tattoo.
That's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah.
So if I go in a lead chapel and I have a short sleeve shirt on, and they're going to say, well, you're not allowed in because you got a battle flag tattoo.
Probably. They kicked us out one time already.
Yeah. For Confederate uniforms.
I'm fairly certain, Vinny, that you said to them that you're Confederate from both in cloth, skin, all the way down to your undergarments.
I did. I told the guy there, I said, listen, I said, I'm Confederate down in my underwear. I said, so you want me to walk in there nude? I said, I know you guys like pole dancing, but which by the way, they did pole dancing in the chapel, the woke college. I said, but I am not about that. So
I hope that doesn't happen. Like that. Dude, Lee would be doing this the whole time. Like he would not.
Oh man,
what has happened to his college? I mean, that's
yeah. Well,
he would I
want tattoos as well. I need to find me an artist that would be open to tattooing it on me, because I have forgotten how lefty and wokey most tattoo artists now are.
Yes,
in the word art.
Especially especially when they are the female of the species.
True, that's a better way to put it.
Come to Alabama. Come to Maryland. Shockingly, in Maryland, they got some great tattoo artists that are very, and I have a referral I could give you, that are very pro-Confederate. You would never imagine that something as simple as like a 2-hour drive, it's more like an hour and a half minus the traffic, hour and a half drive into another state would be so Southern, so different attitudes. That was cool to see.
Yeah.
Maybe in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is a hit or a miss. Gettysburg will be real interesting because I know like you'll have some swords that are ultra woke there and get so upset with the battle flag.
You know, it would be a good idea. Either we should all get in our kits and our flags and just march on either Gettysburg College or Washington and Lee. And
Washington and Lee for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to.
Yeah.
We got to avenge.
I mean,
Traveler for what they did to him. I mean, I know they put it back, but they still can't get away with what they did. I mean,
no, they can't.
That's wrong.
If the guys from Tradition, Family, and Property Catholic group can do that, then why not us?
Yeah.
Y'all know who I'm talking about? TFP Student Action.
Yeah, maybe. I think I've seen.
Oh yeah. I see their videos, and oh my dear Lord, how these college students have an apoplectic fit.
Gettysburg, I have a battle flag I put in my car when I drive down there, and I drove through College Avenue and all that near the college and behind it when I go to the battlefield, and they were like,
but they were.
And I drove by one of their frat houses, and I laid the horn down honking, and I pulled down the window. I said, make good choices, repent, go to church, and drink some fruit juice. They were like, what the heck?
Yeah. I wonder how much of a fit College Avenue and Fayetteville would be. And
if you go to the University of what was it? We should go to the University of Wisconsin.
Oh man.
What about Walmart What about Walmart headquarters?
Oh gosh. What about CNN headquarters? CNN headquarters.
Oh, right there in the heart of downtown Atlanta.
Yeah, that's perfect spot.
Oh yeah.
Nothing bad. That's sarcasm.
Yeah.
Or what about Notre Dame?
Oh gosh, I don't feel like that one would be as bad, but how about Chapel Hill? Yeah, see how that goes.
What about
honestly? It might. Chapel Hills might actually be okay. I mean,
George Washington College.
They took Silence.
What would be a good one?
Yeah.
University of Virginia.
The Charlottesville?
No, the one that President Jefferson founded.
Oh, yeah, that's Charlottesville. Yeah.
Oh, that's Charlottesville?
Newsom's governor mansion.
Oh man, we would not last a day out there.
San Francisco, can you imagine that?
I'll bet you money he probably wouldn't be home. He would probably be in Montana.
Yeah, right.
Or at the French Laundry.
Probably.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh, a really good one. Governor's Mansion, Georgia.
Well, that one would be fine.
Brian Kemp's house.
I mean, still,
yeah. And be like, what did you do?
But
Baltimore, Maryland. How about that?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, the Lincoln Monument.
I
have always thought about the Lincoln Monument would be
I
great.
would love to do that and stand out there.
Yeah,
I
and
would
should
then
gladly do that.
We should do a joint Jersey, Tar Heel Flaggers, and
Ozarks, and
what the heck?
I don't
And
know.
Virginia Flaggers. Yeah, we should have all of us and yours. Yeah, have all of us go out there to the Lincoln Memorial.
Who's Tyler Perry, the actor, or
Yeah,
God.
I don't think he's going to be supporting us.
That Tyler Perry, the actor.
Okay, Medea. Could you imagine?
Osh?
Go up to. I want to go to Boston. Yeah, Boston, and get the actor that does Peter
Boston.
Griffin to come out.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if Tyler Perry would even be with us in Georgia. I don't even know where he'd stand on it, and and I don't even know if he's in Georgia. I know he's from Louisiana.
I think his studio, though, where he does all of his filming and stuff, is in Georgia.
Well, that's where most of them are now. A lot of them leave, Hollywood and go to Georgia for some reason. That's why you seen how all these actors moved to.
I mean, Tom Cruise. No wait,
They had such an impact on it.
Well, Dennis Quaid is in Fayetteville right now filming a movie. And
Is it freezing up on y'all?
Is it freezing? You're freezing up.
You're freezing up on my end, yeah.
I'm
talking to my end.
All right, let me get up there. I'll come back on here in a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Morgan,
let me try this.
Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. I think he would be leaning, but I don't see him standing by Mr. Edgerton or Mr. Newsom out there with us.
The problem is that even if you could, I look at somebody like a Morgan Freeman, and I feel like if you could sit down and actually talk with him and have a discussion, that you might actually get him to see your side of things. But at the end of the day, his decision-making process is going to be based on the almighty dollar.
Yeah. And, I mean, he does put down a lot of woke people. I mean, the way he dressed down Don Lemon on.
Yes.
That's right.
That, yeah. I mean, he openly has said that, Black History Month, ridiculous. And how do we get rid of racism? Stop talking about it.
That's right. That's right.
And when he was asked again, on a separate occasion, if racism plays a part in the job market today, he's like, "Well, today, no."
Yeah, they don't like that answer.
No, they don't, and
especially not when it comes from Morgan Freeman.
And not from Sheriff Clark either.
Right.
From Milwaukee.
But see, they expect it from Sheriff Clark. They didn't expect it from Morgan Freeman. And that's one of the reasons that made such a big headline.
And even Denzel Washington is on the same side as Morgan Freeman. He thinks all of it's ridiculous. I mean, why relegate my history to a month?
I think that those guys can see that a lot of the agitation, the racism agitation, is done more by the media and the entertainment industry and academia than it is by everyday, regular Americans.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's just it's just unusual when you can get people to be honest about that.
Oh, I know. And you should see the looks on people's faces when I tell them that there were Black Confederates, or as they're usually called, Confederates of color. But the people would just act like they had a malfunction.
I've gotten that in New Jersey, and let me tell you something. It's the best because when you talk about the minorities that served in the Confederacy, you not only make the left's heads explode, but the people on the right. Oh my gosh! I was like, well, there were black people that fought for the Confederacy. What? I had one guy that he was running. He was running for the Senate position. That Bob Menendez, the guy that had all the gold bars in his house, that he, that position's up for election this year, and he was running. And he goes around. And he's very cocky. He's going, are you going to help me run? And I told him, I said, no. And everybody looked at me like, oh, I said, no, I won't. And here's why. I said, you don't have the proper values that I'm looking for, but that's fine. I said, you do you. And he got all mad. And we sit there arguing. We started an argument over history. Well, they were forced to serve. How do you know they were forced to serve? They willingly served. And I said, there's proof of that. And I tried to point him to the video and the, Barry Eisenhower's Confederate Minute with Teresa Roan. Tell him to look that, and he's just not having none of it. And he's like, we're going to agree to disagree. I said, smart choice.
Yeah.
I think when somebody says we're going to agree to disagree at something like that, that's when I look back at them and say, well, that's fine. I'm going to agree with the history record. You can disagree with it if you want to.
Yeah. That's pretty much how I go as well. Because I mean, and if you start listing off atrocities committed by federal troops, they seem to conveniently have amnesia, like burnt the. And if they don't have amnesia, they celebrate these looting, sacking, shooting. I mean, how many comments you see that says Sherman didn't do enough?
Yep.
No.
And I was like, isn't his monument, his golden monument, on the chopping block soon?
It is. So what happened every year in New York City, they have to approve their budget, which is the cancel culture budget, as we call it. And that's where they allocate funds every year to, kind of go back and say, all right, we're going to, see what we're going to remove this year. Sherman is on the chopping block, as is Washington, Columbus, and another figure that was colonial. And that is all throughout New York City. So Sherman's monument's days are numbered. It was also vandalized during the recent protests out there in the city. So that was the drastic irony.
Yeah.
Darren, Georgia, 1860. Ooh, is that like an account?
I think it's a Black Confederate.
Oh, yes.
I thought maybe it was a town that was burned, but that would be too early, 1863.
It would have been later, right?
Yeah, it would have been 64.
64-ish.
So I have to apologize because I missed a little bit while I was getting ready to come on. Did you guys go into what's gone on in Virginia with the schools and all that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shenandoah Valley.
Would anybody mind if I talked about that for just a second?
Go for it.
Because I wanted to bring up this interview that I read about. And I've got a transcript of the interview here, and it was done on CNN. Have you guys ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Warren Christian?
No.
Is he is he that woke pastor?
No.
That one?
No. It's not a surprise that no one's ever heard of Warren Christian, but I know that you know who his great-great-grandfather was. His name was Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson.
No way.
And in the past few days, I've seen comments about different things on Facebook regarding quote unquote generational Southerners. And obviously, there are generational Southerners who have stood up for our heritage. And we say, God bless them and all the generations that have. But there are so many who have not either stood up or they've done the opposite. They've stood up against our heritage. And Warren Christian is an example of a generational Southerner who has totally rejected his honorable Confederate heritage. If you'll give me just a moment.
Yes.
If you'll give me a moment, I'm going to read some of his comments. Now, this was all in relation to the bringing back of the names of Stonewall Jackson and Turner Ashby, Robert E. Lee to 2 schools in Virginia. Mr. Christian says, I'm saddened, I'm disappointed, but as a firm believer in democracy, public schooling and local control of schools, I respect their right to rename the school, and I respect their right to do what is morally wrong. What is wrong with this guy? Morally wrong? Obviously, this guy doesn't know anything about the people that these schools are being put, the names are getting put back onto him about. So he goes on to say, honestly, I don't think it should matter so much what I have to say about it. The school board shouldn't particularly care what I have to say, but I think they should listen to their own students. And the night before they changed, Thursday night before they changed the name, there was another speaker who I don't think was mentioned, a courageous 8th grader who stood up in front of the school board, and she said, quote unquote, I'm a black student, and if the names are restored, I would have to represent a man who fought for my ancestors to be slaves. That makes me feel like I'm disrespecting my ancestors and going against what my family and I believe. So this guy, Warren Christian, now is dragging out a quote from a child who has no understanding, true understanding of the history of the war and what these men actually represented and stood for, in order to play to the emotions of the viewers on CNN, which, I mean, people who watch that channel, they don't need their emotions played with already. They're already suckered in, probably.
Yeah, they're pretty much suckered in.
And so then he goes on to say, after he finishes her quote, and he says, and she's exactly right. No student should have to go to a school named after someone who fought for the continued enslavement of their ancestors. And even for those who like the name or wish it hadn't been changed, I don't know how you can vote for that name change to rename it again after my great-great-grandfather, after that brave student and others so clearly and cogently explained how that this would harm them. The name is going to hurt them? No, what hurts them is teaching them lies about who these men were and what they fought for and represented. I'm telling you right now, I've read book after book after book about Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee. I'll be honest and say I'm not as well versed on Turner Ashby as I should be, but that will change as I go on and read more. With that being said, I can promise you that nobody who knows anything true about Stonewall Jackson or Robert E. Lee would ever say that those men fought to keep anybody enslaved or in chains or in bondage. Ever.
That's right.
Ever.
Yeah, I just looked this up right now. He and his brother have championed back in 1617 for the removal of his monuments.
And it's scary. Look at the you see a slight resemblance there, very slight with the hair. I decided to find out this one, William, and the other one's Warren. Warren apparently works with international students at the University of North Carolina, where he has a PhD. This guy right here is a department at Westfield State University, WSU, and that's William Jack Christian. So when I looked up his reviews at Westfield State University, I found his Rate My Professor, and it's actually kind of funny and comical. He's given that a 3 out of 5, and the one that says would not take again. Christian is a good guy, but kind of awkward. Class discussions rarely go anywhere, and he picks on people to participate. Lots of readings and little assignments that he sometimes doesn't check to grade. But if you try to come to class prepared, you'll get an A. Also, don't try too hard in drafts because he cares more about improvement. And then he says that one of them says, the most condescending professor I've ever had has insulted me and other students multiple times. If you ask a question, don't expect to get a clear response. Changes assignment details all the time. We'll have you write papers that you won't even hand in for a grade, but you must read them to the class. Homework every night. Discussions in class go nowhere. Oh my gosh. Right here. I had Professor Christian for English Composition 101. He did not answer a single question correctly. If you were unclear about directions, he would just reiterate your question. Homework every single night, paper almost every night. He used the textbook quite often. When you do respond in class, he'll give an awkward, okay, answer back. Would not recommend. Good guy, but has a weird accent. He is passionate about photography. The minutes tick by quite slowly in his class. He assigns a lot of projects and does portfolios as big grades. If you're into photography, then in the class. Very contradiction and condescending when you cannot follow his inconsistent logic. Pretend to encourage discussion, but never lets it progress beyond his scope of thought. Redundant and repetitive assignments. If I could do it all over again, I'd switch out on day one. If you're struggling in English, do not take this class. He's got no concern for student progress, throws assignments at you without explaining them at all, and talks way too much about useless information. If you struggle in his class, he has no patience for you. Do not take the class. Jesus.
Yeah,
He uses Wikipedia for legit definitions and changes his mind every time you ask him a question. An English teacher's worst nightmare. Seriously, at all costs. That was him. That's what his brother has to say.
And I thought back in the day, and I thought back in the day, you do not cite Wikipedia at all.
Well, as we know,
you're
the
not
standards in everything, whether it be education or whatever the field or area might be, are being lowered all the time. Pretty soon, Wikipedia is going to be an acceptable source for everything.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
They'll take that over the actual words of a history book if it contradicts the narrative.
Yeah, well, yeah, that will. They're not very forthcoming, I guess I should say. That's just craziness.
and just like what Dixie Lee here says, he's a lazy professor.
It's just so ridiculous. All the lies. And when you have, if I was a direct descendant of Stonewall Jackson, you know how amazing that would be to have that? That's right. That legacy.
I have said that so many times.
It's given to those that can't stand it, and that's the worst part.
Yeah. And what's even more sad is Robert E. Lee V is right there with him too.
Yeah, absolutely. He and his sister are working right alongside with the federal government to basically remove all the honor to Lee at Arlington House.
Absolutely shameful.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And I think part of the problem is where these gentlemen, these ancestors of these people, they were, the Jackson family, the Lee family, they were prominent families. Yeah. And so they were fortunate enough to be able to go to these prominent schools at a time for many years when these schools actually taught true history. But unfortunately, as the academia and the education system has gone downhill and has adopted a factually errant view of history and a narrative that goes against what the actual record of history says, then their descendants, as we get closer to this generation, they've been indoctrinated to believe that their ancestors fought for some evil cause.
Yeah, and thankfully, Jeb Stewart's family are still going strong.
They are.
Yeah.
That's them.
Yeah, you can definitely see it.
I wonder
especially
if during
that one on the right.
Yeah.
I can see Stonewall picking them both up by the scruff of their necks and riding off down the road on a horse, carrying them. Hey, boys, time to get it straight.
Oh man, he'd be like, I'm gonna get my Bible out and we're gonna have a long talk on the porch.
Yeah. And I'll wager you that they do not know about the church that he helped with helped with the African Americans over there as well.
That's right.
That he was their pastor and their teacher.
Even if they do know, they don't care, or they're so indoctrinated that it wouldn't matter. That's how so many of these people are. And these two fellas, both being recipients of money from the current system of academia, they're not going to change their mind, because even if they did deep down inside know the truth, they'd be too afraid to actually change and go back and say, you know what, we were wrong, because then they would be out of a job.
And you know what? And this is what, to that point, what really drives me crazy is that they have a PhD, both of them, and that they're in higher levels of academia, and they are using their degree for evil. How could they sit there and lie to the American people and lie to everybody about their ancestry while they're trashing apart their family? I mean, what a horrible sin that is. That is the most disgusting behavior. It's vile. It is. There are not words I could say that are Christian to describe that behavior. And for those that don't know, I am a member proudly of the Military Order of the Stars and Bars. I've proven my genealogy to General Wheeler. And, he's a collateral ancestor. I am proud of that. Of course, I wish he was like my grandfather or something. But as my ancestor, as having General Wheeler as my ancestor, I would never say, take down his monument, do this, do that. Those words would never come out of my mouth in a way that would be demeaning to my ancestor. And one thing that just shocks me is when you have these generals that maybe they never had it, A.P. Hill, for example. A.P. Hill never had children. He never had he doesn't have any direct descendants because he never had children. So
he did.
You have collaterals, and John Hill being the closest collateral descendant of A.P. Hill, he did everything within his power to keep the monument in Monument Avenue. Now, all you got to have is one person that says, I'm a collateral ancestor, take the monument down, and they listen to that one person.
Yeah, A.P. Hill did have children. They died without issues. What happened?
Right.
Yeah, but none that survived and reproduced.
And
that's right.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about. Robert E. Lee V.
Shameful, absolutely
shameful. And to add insult to injury, the false Robert E. Lee descendant adding salt in the wounds.
Robert he was like W. Lee, the fourth.
That guy, he was claiming to be related to him, and then he on Twitter, back when it was Twitter, he then did a tweet about him being mentally unstable, having to spend time in a mental institution, where I'm like, wait a minute, you're a quote unquote pastor. I don't even consider him a pastor because of some of the stuff that he believes in is just not in line with the Christian faith at all. I'm
going to say this. I'll say this. Any pastor, I don't care what faith or denomination they are, if they encourage people to break the fifth commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth. If you encourage your parishioners to break that commandment by encouraging them to go out and remove monuments and statues to Confederate veterans, shame on you. You're not a pastor. You're not fit for the pulpit.
You're a heretic.
That's right. A fraud. Wolf in sheep's clothing. Evil. You are evil to do that.
Yes.
We've had that problem at our church. We've had three churches we had to leave. First one, they went woke. Second one, they went woke. And the third one, which this was the adding insult to injury, because they had a classical Christian school that was K through 8th grade. That entire school had to close because overnight parents just pulled their children out of it. And it said, we don't have the funds. We don't have the students to continue. And it went after 50 something years of being in operation.
Yeah. And that's sad because, I mean, a lot of these left-wing woke pastors are infiltrating the churches, the schools, and whatnot. These Christian schools, and I saw on there I saw, for example, in Northwest Arkansas, the Methodist Church split into three congregations because of pretty much woke ideology. The conservative congregation wanted to split off.
Yeah, the Methodist congregation or the denomination is in a real time of tumult. I don't belong to a Methodist congregation, but my great grandmother was a Methodist, and the congregation that she belonged to down in southeast Kentucky, I had the privilege of visiting with them back in April. And I sat down with the pastor for a good hour and a half, 2 hours after the service. And they're so torn up because of all of the stuff that's going on. And what the problem is for them, and I'm sure if it's there, it's a lot of places. They don't agree with the direction that things are heading. But at the same time, they've got this long-term, long-standing attachment to the denomination. And it's like they don't, cutting that tie, I mean, it's cutting a historical tie. It's like ripping their own heart out to have to leave. It's such a hard decision for them to make. And my heart breaks for any of those pastors who they know what they have to do, what's coming and where they're going to have to make that decision. But it's so hard for them to make it. My heart breaks for them.
It does. And it's not just the Methodist Church too. The Presbyterian Church is going through the ringer too.
It's every faith from what I've been seeing. I've seen it with the synagogues. There's been synagogues that are so divided that, you have rabbis that are getting kicked out because they stood up and they said, we believe in the right to fresh air and to continue our faith. Catholic churches too. Catholic churches that tried to fight against the mandates, they were either shut down or, disbarred or, whatever word that is, booted out. We've seen that all over New Jersey.
They were defrocked is the word you're
defrocked. Yes. Yep. Canned, shameful. And same thing with the institutions. The schools used to be more
Cardinal Burke, for example. Yeah.
You're right. It was a whole just downhill turn. And I think that out of something so awful with the illegal lockdowns, depending on which state y'all were in, all that nonsense in 2020, it really exposed people's true colors. And I think we're dealing with the effect of what that looks like today, because there's people that you think are loyal, that you think are these like wonderful people. And you look a little bit deeper and no, underneath there is something sinister. And I've witnessed that time and time again. And I can't tell you like how many times I'm like, oh my gosh, I was handling a king cobra.
Yeah.
Or a rattlesnake. It was that bad.
Well, at least a rattlesnake warns you what it is. Mm-hmm. But
That's right.
Other snakes don't give such warning until they bite you.
Oh, I know. They'll bite you, and then you learn after the fact that, oh my gosh, I should not have been trusting. I should not have been, I should have been more guarded. And I think that changes you as a person, being through, that kind of, hell like that. You put up more barriers. People kind of mistake you for being cold and distant when you're just trying to like say, no, I'm not letting somebody in who's going to, exploit me like they did last time. And there has to be an end to that where you put up those boundaries and say, I'm done. And to Miss Dixie's point, it did divide families. I can't tell you how many families that they have not talked after, the 2020 and the lockdowns. I've known people that they were friends. They have not spoken a word to one another. I think overnight I had a friends list on social media that it declined more than half after I said, why are we destroying historical markers? Why are we doing this? This is wrong.
And every one of these things, I mean, we can go back to 2016 and the election of Trump. Then you jump into 2020 and the summer of George Floyd's love /COVID. All of these things, the media gets in there and they just further, they're constantly driving that wedge deeper and deeper between Americans who mostly, are of goodwill toward one another most of the time. But they get these ideas into people's heads, just like you said about you and your family and your friends group. I have cousins that have not spoken to me or had any contact with me since I took my stand for the battle flag. Then another group left when I stood up for Trump and voted for Trump. Then another group left me when I stood up against the mandates and different things like that. So yeah, it's all like that. And I've never unfriended anybody for their belief or their opinion on these things. I try to talk to them politely, nicely, and educate them or help them to understand why I see things the way I see them. It's never good enough. They get belligerent and then they cut you off.
Facts. And what really just gets me is that I always make it very clear. I'm a proponent of the First Amendment. And I tell people, I don't care, if you're commenting this, commenting that, you have every right to express yourself. And with the same thing with the lockdowns, I shared that we were at a party and this was 2020. We were openly defying the mandate. Shame on you. You're a grandma killer, yada, 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 attacking my character. And I'm like, listen here. That's the point where I'm like, okay, just so you know, I'm not going to unfriend you, but you're making yourself look like a fool. And usually they unfriend themselves. But my policy is this. It's rare that I go back on this. If they go on there and they act like a child and they make themselves look like a fool, I will not stoop to their level. I'm not going to stoop to their level and be just as awful. If they decide, that they're going to unfriend me and do this, they are not getting back on. That it's rare. It is so rare. It's like 98% of the time. Unless you can make a very good case to me as to why I should let you back on, because people at that age do not change when they're older and they can't respect that you have a certain opinion or viewpoint, or they want to just take it personally that you make a decision they don't agree with. That's the problem.
Yeah, usually I just press the unfollow. I just press the follow button more than the unfriend, really, because as long as I don't see their posts, really. Oh, that's man. Awful. Yeah, that's awful. Yes.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Dixie Lee.
That's awful.
Yeah.
I've been so blessed because my family, my immediate family, they encouraged me to join the Sons of Confederate Veterans, to get involved and be active in honoring and educating people about our heritage. And that's here in Michigan. And I feel for those people who their families, especially their close immediate family, their mom or sister or somebody that they've lived in the same house with, now has basically turned their backs upon them, all because they honor their family heritage of military honor and sacrifice.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, because my family is not real big on the SCV and flags and whatnot, but we're usually on the same page when push comes to shove, minus a couple of woke siblings or cousins or three.
That's right. No,
because
you always got that one family member too. Oh my gosh, that's heartbreaking. Jeez.
Whoa. Ow.
Yeah, that's bad.
Ow. Yeah.
Dixie, I can't always, because this is the one thing where me being a kind of professional in the field, without kind of getting in the weeds in it, I will say that you will find that you do have family members. And I know you're always going to love your parents and all that. There are family members that might not always know their boundaries. And this is kind of something, I guess, it's, social media makes it more difficult. But boundaries are something that need to be taught early on, I feel at least. And the problem is that we live in a time where having no boundaries is viewed as like cool, or, people think that they can force their own values on somebody else. And people forget, imagine like I draw a triangle. This is what represents us as humans: thoughts, behaviors, emotions. They are interconnected. You change one side of the triangle, everything else changes. But guess what? Those three things we have total control over as human beings. We have control of our thoughts, we have control of our emotions, and we have control of our actions. Obviously, I love John and Corey, but let's say, for whatever reason, I wasn't feeling good at, John or something, and I'm thinking in my head, John's a doo-doo head. Am I going to say that? No. But let's say that my emotion was, I'm having this thought, and I'm like really angry at John because, I don't know, he gave me unsweetened iced tea. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to call him up and say, I have a choice. I'm going to call him up and say, I really didn't like that iced tea. That would be the adult thing to do. Or I could say, John, you're a doo-doo, which I would never do. But you see how I'm in full control? All I got to do is change the thoughts. And wait a minute, maybe John maybe there was no sweet tea. Maybe he didn't know any better to do the sweet tea. That people aren't that good at being self-aware, and parents are no different. I've had friends that their parents will disown them over something petty. They'll say something that's so messed up. And of course, you're going to love your parents unconditionally, but what you don't love is their behavior. And that's what you got to do, is separate the two.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, Mom, in that case, Mom, I love you, but I don't love your behavior. Your behavior is really disrespectful to me.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I mean, I usually try to avoid confrontation because I can get pretty venomous. But usually what I say to my family is like, I don't appreciate the way you're speaking to me.
I do the same thing. I said, I noticed when you spoke to me, your tone was really just atrocious. Can you tell me more about that? And they respond, it's sad to say, but yeah, I've heard of that. The worst, y'all, is I've witnessed this with the family divides being so bad because New Jersey's a divided state. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Ideology, politics, all that. People are just so polarized that I've actually seen, because my family friend is a funeral home director. There's been one of the funeral homes where they will have different times where families will sign up for one and then different times for the other. And they have to really try hard when they get together, just for, the funeral, to keep it civil and keep it mellow, because otherwise it's explosive. They've actually had a fight in the funeral home. That was just like, whoa, that's bad. I've never experienced that, thankfully, but I've heard a lot of cases of that happening.
Yeah, that's insane. I've never heard of a fight at a funeral home.
And a lot of these things, like, if families just had more boundaries, if they were, more respectful, you wouldn't necessarily be in this position. You look at some of the quote unquote anti-racist training, aka the CRT, the DEI, communist nonsense, that teaches you to be quote unquote a disruptor, where you're disrupting your family, where you're, getting involved and being really nasty. They encourage that disrespect. And that's part of the problem, is until they address that, we're not going to see long-term systemic change. Oh, you brought my puppy, Bella.
John brought the rug.
My dog is a rug too, Enzo.
Oh, look.
That's right. How many times have I said agree to disagree?
Oh, yeah.
Or, yep, 110%. Bella. Hello, Bella.
Look, right here.
Bella. She's like, Bella, I'm going to take you to New Jersey.
She says, I've watched The Sopranos. I see what goes on there.
I can picture Bella in like a little robe watching the Housewives of New Jersey with a glass of fake wine. Oh. If I still had my boa constrictor, I'd have my boa constrictor out. He was a 15-foot boa, and he was a sassy one.
Oh, look, Bella. Look.
A cat.
You see that? She was about a foot away from a squirrel the other day that had jumped up onto the windowsill outside the window, and we had the window up. And oh man, that was very fascinating to her to smell a squirrel.
Oh man.
Well, these two escaped from my house during a storm down here. The storm flung my door wide open and they ran out the house.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, they would not stop hissing at each other for weeks.
Oh no. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would-
Bella. She's like, he's mine. What?
Real
How do
quick.
you react when you leave for your trips?
Hmm?
She goes on the trips.
Oh, smart. Oh, yes, smart.
It's very rare for her. Like when I come down to national reunion, she can't go. So, but she's always with family. So what I have to do is I have to leave an article of clothing behind so that she can snuggle up with it, and it's got my scent on it. The look on your face, Vinny.
I'm just.
So, real quick, I know you can't see the whole books, but right up here above my finger, you see these white books right there?
Yeah.
That is an almost complete set of the Jefferson Davis papers.
Oh my goodness.
I only have one more volume to go. It's 14 volume set, and I've got to get the last volume now.
Is it the same prints, same editions?
I'm sorry. Yeah, as far as I know, they've never done a second edition on any of them. But they started releasing them back in the 70s, I believe, the late 70s or early 80s. And they just put the last volume out a few years ago. They're super expensive, though. I mean, it's basically $100 a book if you buy them brand new. And I found, I think, like the first 8 volumes for like $400 and some used. And then I've kind of been piecing my set together since then.
That's really good. That's a beautiful, and I love your collection up there of the books.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, I've got to.
It's hard to find them all together at once.
And they're all his speeches.
It's got speeches, letters. Obviously, to have every letter in full, I mean, you'd need more than 14 volumes. But the editors basically pick which ones to give you the full letter of, and then the ones that they don't give you the full letter, they give like a what do you call it? Abridged version of the letter, like the Cliff Notes. Oh, that's a great idea, but they look so great on my bookshelf.
Oh, that's a tough choice.
Not to mention they're easier to grab off the bookshelf than in a firebox.
That bookshelf is tall. Knowing my luck, if I need a ladder or if I went to go reach, the whole thing would come crashing down on me.
Oh, it's only maybe 6.5 feet tall.
Well, I'm sure. Ooh, jumping up.
Well, I was when I first started with the Sons of Confederate Veterans and getting involved in camp leadership. My past commander of the camp, he gave me a large number of books. That's your new nickname, Vinny. Italian Shortness.
But you could do it. You can gladly call me Italian Shortness, or you can go Shortness. Because for those who don't know that reference, I had a professor that would go up to you and go, Sweetness, Pumpkin. You have to redo your giant assignment. Shortness.
Huh. Does that mean Vinny and Dixie require footstools?
No, knowing my luck, I do. This is the funniest thing is like growing up when you're kind of short and everything was kind of tall. I used to try to rig it where like jumping up on the countertop and putting one foot on the box, which I learned not to do that again because I weigh more than I think. And I'd reach up or kind of do like a stretch my arm up. After almost falling a few times, I'm like, I'm going to get a safety step stool, or I'm going to get a life alert too because I need a life alert. I had that happen with the cat. That had a whole cabinet come crash.
Oh man.
We do. Oh, you have a son, Vinny. That's right. My son, Vinny, tries to. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that right. If you don't eat your vegetables, that's such a lie. I've been told that too. You'll be right off.
That's an old wives' tale.
Heck, when I was vegan, I could have been 8 foot tall.
If you want to get tall, that's going to involve a painful surgery.
Oh
Yes.
yes.
I read about that. Oh
Yeah.
man.
How it they drill into your bones essentially.
Yep, they have to break your bones first, or cut your bones first, then
Mhm.
stretch you out, and then use metal plates and stuff to make you taller.
And then they have to grow the bones to it.
Yep. Yep.
And not exactly Harry Potter either. If you get my, growing bones.
Yeah. No.
Oh man, I can't. Harry Potter's bone juice. That's Oh man, blame your grandma. That's funny. Nona, she wasn't my biological one, but I always considered her to be. I'll never forget. She was telling me, she goes, I don't get it. She goes, every time I fall, I come back stronger. She used to have a cane and a walker. She got off the cane and the walker when she fell down the stairs once. And actually, I don't know what did it, but 3 falls, and she actually ended up stronger and more regenerated than before. How or why, I don't know.
Man, I'm looking this up right now. John, you aren't kidding. It's $100 for a hardcover book.
And here's the thing that drives me nuts. The ebook editions are also the same price as the hardcover copies.
No, the ebook is $20 actually.
Where's that at?
It's at LSU Press.
Oh, well, then they've dropped it, because for a long time the ebook was the same price, and I even saw a few cases where the ebook was more expensive than the actual physical copy.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the 1971 edition.
Well, I mean, that's probably like volume 1 or whatever.
One.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, but that doesn't have, that's what the first, his young years.
This one is Papers of Jefferson Davis, 1808 to 1840.
Go look at volume 14, 1880 to 1889. That's the last one I need.
Quit scratching that. Cats.
Oh my, y'all. We are almost on here for 2 hours.
Yeah. I just now realized it. Yeah.
I am fixing to wrap up. What say you guys?
Same.
Yeah, that works for me.
I'm gonna take so I can take a quick ice cream break. I want to thank each and every one of y'all from coming on here and taking the time, out of your day to watch our podcast. It will be live. We are on X. And Bella. Am I allowed to take Bella to New Jersey for one whole week?
She says that you have to pack me with her suitcase.
I'll call like a truck. But where's John? Hey, John said, "Dear guys, I have gone away on a vacation for New Jersey."
Yes, yes. My dog packs me in her luggage.
That would be the
duffel bag.
Prank her. If you said, I come up there and you put Bella in the car with me and you shut the door and said, "Bye, Bella," she would either turn into a piranha and growl at me, or she'd be like whimpering, like, "Where's John?"
Just looking at you that close, she would already be barking.
Oh, jeez.
It would take a few hours for her to get used to you to be able to like come up and actually like maybe sit on your lap.
And the big question is John going through airport security or luggage control?
Oh no. Luggage drop. Oh, that would be terrible to do to somebody luggage drop off. Ow.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be a heck of a size carry-on bag to fit me in it.
You'll break Oh, I'll never forget the last trip to Minneapolis. Every freaking time I went down there, something broke, and it was a thing of like hair heat protectant for for my hair and like leave-in conditioner. Well, the thing is liquid. It's like alcohol in it. The whole thing broke in my bag because however they handled the bags, snapped in half all over my suitcase. And I was smart enough to have one big zip up jacket, which absorbed most of it. My entire thing stunk like alcohol.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, they're going to think I have a drinking problem. And the worst part was I almost brought moonshine because we actually had moonshine in the lobby. The third time I did the moonshine and we had it in the lobby, we had a great time. The good news with the moonshine, it did not break. That was my biggest fear. If that breaks, that's number one, money. But number two, all over my bag,
Oh man, that would be bad. Big time.
All right. Good night, Dixie Lee.
Good night, Dixie.
Not Dixie
right.
Lee.
Y'all stay Southern and Deo Vindice, y'all.
Deo Vindice.